Hello, it's Leslie here again. Today I'm going to talk about what happened to me when I tried to import 5 bikes back into Australia. So I'm going to talk about that for 10 or 15 minutes. So, several years ago, my business in Spain ended, my relationship ended with my then wife, and I went back to Spain to liquidate all of my stock of bikes, essentially. So I pretty much I was working around the clock. I got everything sold within 2 weeks, including a van and a motorbike. So I was highly stressed, probably the most stressed I've ever been in my entire life. And I actually got a phone call then at the same time as well that my father had died. So I was extremely on edge. So it was like a double whammy or triple whammy of stress. Okay, so what happened was I brought back 5 bikes with me. One bike I brought back as luggage, road bike on the first trip back to Australia. Then I bought another on the journey back from Spain after I liquidated everything. I brought the second of the 5 bikes back with me. And then the other three I decided to freight backwards, air freight. So I paid maybe, I can't remember, maybe it was $500 or $1,000 or something to air freight, uh, 50 kilos worth of stuff back. So with the bikes that I brought in myself on the plane, they came out as luggage, and I didn't declare anything, nothing to declare. They were quite clean because they were road bikes and no problems. I had no problems bringing them in as luggage. The problems happened with the mountain bikes. So, as I said, I was extremely busy. I didn't clean the mountain bikes enough. So, they weren't that dirty though, anyway. But the point is, I freighted them back. I packed them all in cardboard, like bike boxes. They took, I don't know how many weeks to arrive, probably 6 weeks to arrive from Spain to Australia. Then I got a letter from Customs saying they had to be inspected by Australian Customs quarantine. So, I'll just pause this and gather my thoughts. Yeah, so what happened was I got this letter and it said, you have an appointment for the bikes to be inspected by a quarantine officer. And so I went there and it was like a warehouse and I saw my bikes, in the boxes on the shelf, and then the forklift got them off. And I thought, aha, there they are, finally. And anyway, I waited around for a while, and then this quarantine officer came to inspect the bikes. And everyone told me in the meantime, are they clean? And I said, yeah, they're clean, because they weren't muddy or anything like that. They were just, they didn't have cruddy mud on them. So anyway, this officer arrived, and they open up the box in front of you. So he opened up one of the first boxes, took one look inside, and said, that's a fail. Straight away. So I thought, oh God. And I started to get a bit angry because I was on edge and I had been through a lot. So I started to lose my temper, which doesn't really help because there's nothing you can do. It's one of those moments you can fly off the handle, but pretty much you've lost. You don't have any control in that situation. So the thing that got me angry though was they weren't actually that dirty to begin with. So what I thought I was going to pick up my bikes that day, and it turned out I had all this paperwork to do and running around and jumping through hoops. So what happens when it's a fail? What happens is you can probably choose to say, well, I don't want to import this anymore, and they can either destroy it or figure out what to do with it themselves, or obviously something has to be cleaned and so it can pass. So the idea is that it's then steam cleaned. So the warehouse there told me where I could go to get these bikes steam cleaned. In the meantime, I actually, when I'd calmed down a bit, I asked the officer, do you have like education? Do you have a biology education? No, he doesn't. So I kind of mentioned, I was really pissed off. I kind of mentioned, which is rare, I kind of mentioned, well, what happens to the big boats that come in, what about their ballast water? They release tons of ballast water from outside. Because, Australians, and especially Australian quarantine officers, they kind of believe that Australia is contained within an impenetrable bubble and nothing gets in, not even a chocolate bar. So they got this strange idea of how things move, for example, in Spain, dust blows over from Africa, right? And the same happens all around the world. Like dust gets blown around, smoke from Australian fires end up going to New Zealand, things like that. But he wasn't having any of that. So he's like, you've got to get this cleaned. Okay, and I'm like, all right, well, okay. So it costs about, I can't remember exactly, it's $100 or $200 to get steam cleaned. So I had to take the bikes. Now I take the bikes myself to get steam cleaned somewhere else. So all of a sudden it's very weird because you could theoretically just drive off with your bikes at that point. You basically have to figure out what you're going to do and organize everything, the logistics of how you're going to steam clean these bikes. But if you do that, if you just piss off and disappear, they will find you because they have all the records of where you live, where the shipment was going. So there's no point doing that. So I had to get the things steam cleaned, and then that meant I'd rented a van. In the meantime, I'd rented a van for one day to come and collect these 3 mountain bikes, right? Because my car was too small. The car that my family had was too small to really pick up 3 bikes. So I thought, I'm going to rent a van and do this. So then straight away I thought, I'm going to have to rent the van for longer now. So that annoyed me. So that was another day of rental. What happened was they gave me the address, which was in another part of town, and I went there. Now this is the day of the Sydney terror attack as well. To make things worse, everybody was on edge because a jihadi had kidnapped a group of people in the Lint Cafe in Pitt Street, Sydney, and we were told not to go into the city or to carry on as normal, as if nothing happened. So it was a little bit weird. Anyway, but there was an exclusion zone around there. So I was hearing this on the radio when I was driving into the airport, and I thought, fuck. So there was extra traffic around, so I was really pissed off. It wasn't the day. So I went, in this van, which was horrible to drive, to Toyota Hiace, I think it was, to another part of Sydney. I think it had something weird, like the handbrake lever on the dashboard or something weird. I can't remember. Anyway, I took the bikes to this place which was next to the train line. It was like this industrial area. And so I went to the foreman and said, I've got to get these bikes clean and blah, blah, blah. I showed him the paperwork. And then it was my turn after maybe waiting around 10 or 15, 20 minutes. It was my turn. And then the guy comes out with this spray equipment. And it was literally just like a water sprayer. There was no real steam involved. And so the guy that was steam cleaning the bikes, he said, they're not even that dirty. What are they doing? Like he even knew. And I'm saying, tell me about it, So I'll show you. I have the front wheel here from the whole experience. I've kept the quarantine sticker to remind me, because this is an official Australian quarantine, if you can read that, quarantine. So the bikes had a bit of dust on them. Like, I'll show you the wheel, right? This has been cleaned since, but I'll show you the amount of dust on that they had. You see this? In a minute, where are we? You see that speck there of dust like that? You know, it's not actually just. Sorry, let's pull backwards. It's that dust, that speck of. It's virtually. It's not soil. It was volcanic dust. So it's volcanic dust from Las Cañadas, Mount Teide in the Canary Islands. So nothing grows up there. It was I don't consider that soil, but anyway, it was volcanic dust. So it failed. Anyway, so I wouldn't have minded so much, except the steam cleaning was a bunch of rubbish. You know, you'd expect this high temperature compressed steam of 800 degrees or something to kill all the microbes. It was just high pressure water spray, really. I could have done the same job with my Karcher sprayer at home. Anyway, so all the soil just went straight onto the ground. Well, I wouldn't call it soil. The dust that is supposed to be in quarantine, the dust from the bike, the minute amount went straight down the drain. And Christ knows where that ends up, in Sydney Harbour probably, or off. It doesn't, it goes into the environment, is what I'm saying. It doesn't just get destroyed. So all it did was really wash the dust off my bike and straight into the drain, into the waterway. So I was like, this is ridiculous. It really is quite ridiculous. So then, I can't remember, I think I had to go back at that point then to show them that I'd got it steam cleaned, and then and only then could I go back home with the bikes. So the moral of the story is, if you import a mountain bike, or even a road bike, a gravel bike, if you import anything, and even if you do import it as luggage, make sure it's clean and not just not any crud or mud on it, but just wash it down, either with a high pressure sprayer, or wipe it down with a damp cloth and make sure everything is clean. The axles, the hubs, everything. You want to even clean around the chain ring and make sure there's no grit around the chain ring, because they are, really, if you look up anally retentive in the dictionary, the description should be Australian quarantine officer. They are ridiculous. They are so black and white, and any little piece of grit, they will consider as organic material, and you will fail the quarantine test. So make sure everything's clean. I would even wipe down the chain, wipe down all the spokes, wipe down don't just wipe around the wheel like that. Wipe between, where I just showed you on that wheel, wipe between the spoke holes. Clean everything so that it looks like new, and you won't have any problem. Don't just think, like me, I haven't been riding in mud, it's clean enough, that'll do, because it won't. It will fail. If it even has a layer of dust on it, it'll fail, and then it's your time down the drain, and $200 plus down the drain, running all over Sydney or Melbourne, or wherever you're coming in, to get this thing steam cleaned. It's a complete bureaucratic nightmare. So, yeah, that's my advice to anyone who brings in any sporting equipment at all, not just bikes, but anything, be it any sporting equipment at all. Make sure it's 100% as clean as you can get it. Scratches are fine. They aren't stupid. They will know the difference between something that's used and something that might have chips on it in the paint and dust. So they're trained to know that. But there's no reasoning with them. There's no saying, look, I know more about this than you because I'm a scientist and this is bullshit. There's no use, because they will just call the police and then you'll have a situation on your hands. So the best thing to do is, I suppose, to preempt. And he even told me, you know, oh, well, you didn't clean the bikes, so it's your fault. And it's true, it's true. But it was one of those situations where it was the last thing on my mind to clean frigging bikes to bring back into my own country. So I hope this helps some of you if you're thinking about bringing into a mountain bike back into Australia to go riding. That's all I have time for today. Thank you for watching. Bye.